it is very hard for me to just like sit down and like fully motivate myself to do things. Like I need people, and I need people to like push me, and I need people to and I need to like push people, and I need to have that like interaction in person in order like to kind of drive me.
Welcome to It Comes Down to This. Today's guest is Inga Finneke, a B2B marketing strategist with over 14 years of experience helping tech companies scale through full funnel marketing that actually drives pipeline. I've invited Inga on the show because she's not just strategic, she's fearless about challenging the status quo. In this episode, we talk about what CMOs and founders get wrong when they expect marketing to generate leads overnight, how to align brand and demand without creating internal chaos, and why B2B growth takes more patience, process, and persistence than most leaders are willing to admit. If you're tired of reactive marketing and chasing tactics, this conversation is your reset. In today's episode, it comes down to this. Growth doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what matters better. Inga, really awesome to have you on the show. Thank you for joining The Marketer. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I am too. And the reason I'm excited, not just having you on the show, but because of the topic that we're discussing today.
Yes.
And I think it's really important. When COVID came around, and I seem like I say this on a lot of shows, right? COVID still plays such a major part of our life these days, both, continually as people get COVID, but then also how it has impacted almost our everyday lives. And one of the things that has changed since COVID came around is we have remote workplaces.
Yeah.
And so in this episode, I want to explore the power of in-person collaboration versus remote work and how it impacts team dynamics, especially between the marketing and sales teams.
Yes.
And that's why I have brought you on the show, because you've got a ton of experience working with teams all over the world, creating synergies between those teams, and creating the right balance of in-office and remote work. So you ready to discuss it with me?
Yes, I'm so excited.
Fantastic. Okay. So give our audience a little bit of impression in terms of when we're talking about remote teams or global teams. Let's start there, okay? Because a lot of people that may be listening to this may not have global teams, but you do. Okay, so you've probably been working with remote teams long before COVID.
Yes.
Talk to me about some of your experiences. What can be some of the positives about having remote teams globally?
The biggest positive that comes to mind, obviously, is, flexibility. And I hear this from various different people. As you mentioned, I have a global team. I have a few people in the UK, and then I have India as well. Obviously, the time zone's crazy. But the flexibility, is kind of what comes to mind, and people really enjoy that part because they're able to kind of balance, working and getting all of their responsibilities done and their tasks, but they're also then able to, take a break, go for a walk, run a couple of errands, things like that. So I totally understand, that flexibility. Plus, I think just naturally, some people just kind of prefer having a very quiet space where it's like super uninterrupted and they could really focus and just kind of crank it out and get their stuff done. I know a lot of people that kind of strive in that type of environment, 100%. But I think being in marketing and in sales and business development and partnerships and kind of seeing all of the very collaborative teams, when I see people come together, and actually collaborate, that magic is just you can't replace that with anything. And while, like I said, that balance is great where you can sit down, if you have that type of working style where you can sit down and crank it out and get it done, and then you move on with your day, and it's great because you're at home or wherever remotely, and it's all, very flexible. That's all great, but then you need that kind of balance where you can come together from a creative perspective because, like I said, at the end of the day, I'm in marketing and we need that kind of creative space. So coming together and just kind of feeding off of each other's energy, and feeding off of each other's kind of creativity is something that's just so unmatched, and you can't replace that. So that's why I'm super passionate about, coming together in person. It doesn't even have to be in the office all the time. Even if you are working remotely, or if you have, a role where it's just strictly a remote position, try to find somebody somehow where you can come together and just like be together in person. It's something that is truly unmatched in my opinion. So
In your experience, have you found marketing teams or marketing people in general to be more introverted, that they're going to enjoy their own personal space? I want to be alone. I want to, really work, bang out my projects, type stuff. Or do you find them to be more extroverted, that it's, I need the collaboration and I want to talk to people on an ongoing basis and I want to be around my team? What have you found to be kind of the run of the mill, if you would, within your teams?
yeah, honestly, it's kind of a good mix of both. I was actually just speaking to my husband about this. I think in marketing, because you have to be so on all the time, both mentally and just like physically, you're running around, you're going to events, you're hosting events, you're doing podcasts, you're putting together content, you're thinking creative, create in a creative manner. And you're thinking, about innovation, and you're thinking about, how do I drive demand? How do I drive leads from a very creative perspective? You're always on, you're always speaking to people. So you kind of have to have that like extroverted mentality, but naturally, I think a lot of the times we're actually introverts. And so I think that a lot of the times, after like, at least myself, after, a day in the office where I'm just collaborating and, my brain's on fire and things are just kind of sparking, and we're all, sharing ideas, and we're coming up with innovative campaigns, and we're ideating, we're getting the whiteboard out, and we're doing all of that in person. At the end of the day, I come home and I'm like, everybody leave me alone. I need that balance. I need to just like be by myself and just like not speak to anybody, not do anything. And that's why I like taking the train and I don't like driving, because I literally just kind of like decompress, going into work and then leaving from work. So I think it's just kind of like a balance of both. Like I said in the beginning, I think naturally people tend to be either a little bit more to themselves or a little bit more just kind of collaborative. Our team is a little bit more collaborative. We're in the office 3 days a week. We all are very, outspoken. We do a lot of events, just based on the industry that we're in. We're hosting a lot of events, we're exhibiting, we're sponsoring a lot of events. So we all kind of have to have that kind of personality where we're comfortable speaking to other people and all of that. But after speaking to a lot of people on my team, I think everyone feels the same. Like after a long day of that and just being on, you definitely kind of want to just decompress by yourself. So I think it's a good mix.
That question wasn't planned, as you know. Um, it just came to my mind because I think it's such a great question to, for leaders in companies to really assess their team and what is the makeup of your creative team. Because, I've been in, I started as a designer, my career. I've been in marketing for over 30 years. Um, I hate crowds. I mean, I can be in a crowd. It doesn't like give me any kind of anxiety or anything. I can be in it. I just don't prefer it. I actually can't stand it. And, and My daughter just moved to New York City and she loves it. She loves that hustle and bustle. That drains me faster than anything. I can't stand it. Um, but when I'm collaborating with somebody, it is energy giving, if you would. When I'm able to get with a few people and really start talking through things, ideas start pinging off of each other, and we really can come up with all kinds of fantastic things. That, to your point, as marketers, you do kind of have to always be on. But what I was getting at with leadership is to understand your team and what they need, I think is really super important because um, while you may have part of your team that really needs to be part of that collaborative effort, you're going to have other people that they can only do that for so long. And then they need to go in and really work that out mentally. And regardless, both scenarios, you have to have some time to decompress all of that. You can't just be on all the time. And, for me, I will periodically through the day, I will just go out and look at something else online of interest, regardless of whether that has nothing to do with marketing, has nothing to do with my job. It's just that I need to move my focus away from just that always being on stage, you know, into just dumping it out and releasing all of that. So is um is it a better situation for creative teams specifically to work remotely because they don't feel the pressure of in office that, okay, well, I'm here, that means I have to be working 8 hours, and the boss is going to walk by and see what I'm doing on my computer, or is going to be, wondering if I'm, you know, getting the little next ad worked out or whatever, right? Whereas remotely, I'm kind of in control of my own time. What do you think is better?
Yeah. I mean, I think that to your point, being in the creative field, I think that you need to have that kind of balance. And that's why I don't think being in the office every single day is 100% necessary. And that's why I really appreciate, at least for our company, we have, the 3 days that we all come into the office, the same 3 days, and then the 2 days where we work remotely. So we have that time, to your point, to like decompress and just kind of crank it all out because it can get, a bit draining for sure. Now, when we have major campaigns that we are putting together around busy seasons, or if we have an event coming up that we have invested a lot of time, money, just everything into, I definitely encourage my team to come in so then that way we can ideate together, we can put a plan together because it's just easier, right? Like when you're in a remote type of setting, you can't really fully read each other's body language and you can't fully, kind of like stop the person and be like, wait, but like I have an idea, because then it kind of comes off like you're interrupting them, and it's like, wait, and then there's like a little lag, and it's just being in person to like ideate those big projects, big campaigns, or big events that you're putting together. In my opinion, just results in something that is way more successful, and we just kind of like crank it out and we get it done. Whereas opposed to when we're all kind of working remotely, things tend to get a little bit more delayed, and all of a sudden, you're in a Zoom meeting, and you're kind of hashing things out for a specific campaign. And then you get off the call and then you're like, oh shoot, I also wanted to ask this, and then you send a Slack or you send a message, and then you don't get a response, and then you kind of forget about it. And then the day goes by and you're like, wait, I never got this question answered. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, but then I couldn't complete this one task because I don't have the answer. Where like, if you're together, it's like, you can stop and you can take a breath and be like, okay, wait, I have a question. So I think that it's like a good balance, right? So having that opportunity of being at home and completing your tasks where it's, just like the regular kind of always on type of campaigns, or cranking out a blog post or content or a social media campaign, something that doesn't necessarily need that collaborative effort, I think is fine. But when you have those kind of, major campaigns that we've invested a lot of time and, money towards, then I think that being in person and collaborating that way is crucial. Plus, you also have the opportunity to pull in different people as needed, right? Like, we're a marketing team, but first and foremost, we're a revenue team. And that's kind of how we categorize ourselves. And as part of the revenue team, we have marketing, we have sales, customer excellence or customer experience. And then we have the business development side of things. And then we have partnerships. And then all together, that makes up the rev team. And because our company is, fairly small, we all work very, very closely together. The CEO is in, pretty much every meeting. The COO is in pretty much every decision-making type of meeting. So you have that benefit when you're together to then pull in the necessary people as needed, because you're here together and you're able to do that. Whereas remotely, you're kind of just relying on the people that you're in the Zoom meeting with. So that's another kind of benefit that I've seen, at least.
So you have remote teams.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned at the beginning of the show that you have them in India, UK, and Philippines, did you say?
No, just so India
I
and
made
UK.
that up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
Maybe
you at
one
least
day.
have them in two separate companies. That means 3 different time zones.
Yeah.
You've been making the case for how important it is to have in-person meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've got a campaign, y'all got to get in the room and you got to, knock that out. And which I totally agree with, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of who you are, as a creative, whether you're more, I want to be by myself, I don't like people, or you're very extroverted, everybody needs to come together at some point. But when you have remote teams, that's not possible.
Right.
So how do you manage that? Do you have in-person meetings here in the US and then ask your individual teams in those other countries to have in-person meetings, or how does it work? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, obviously, in an ideal world, we'd have everyone together, but that's just not quite possible, right? So at least on the US side of things, and I have our brand manager who works fully remotely in Florida. So she was just actually out here for our rebrand launch. So we had her here in person. And then we had the rest of the team, join in, obviously, remotely. So that's kind of what we do. Unfortunately, we can't have everybody in person, but I will say our CEO makes an effort to, when possible, even have those people come in person for the major things, right? So any like major revenue type of meetings, things like that, where there's a huge update on something, or if we're ideating something that is affecting the wider organization and it is very important for them to be a part of that conversation, like, he'll sometimes even fly them out. Now, when that's not possible, of course, we all kind of join together and they join remotely. And what I like to do is I like to kind of prep the remote teams as much as possible too, and just kind of let them know what the meeting is going to be about. So then that way, when we join, it's not awkward, and they're not just kind of sitting there like wondering what the meeting is about. Because obviously, when you're in person, as you're walking to the room, you're kind of chit-chatting and you're briefing, the call that's about to happen or whatever. So I kind of like to prep the team that is joining in remotely. I either send them like an agenda doc, where I just send them like a very informal kind of message, just kind of prepping them of what we are going to discuss, action items that I want to get out of the meeting. And then, if possible, especially if it's, a larger type of meeting where, it's around a specific campaign, for example, that we're going to launch, having them come prepared with, research and having them kind of prepared with talking points. So then that way we're not wasting time with that like awkward pause and that awkward silence that could sometimes happen when you're remote.
You know, people are relational, and we all need relationships, and that's one of the ways to do that. I think better than anything is the in-person meeting. Um, when everything shut down and we were all forced to basically work remotely, that's how Zoom became so big, right? I mean, just like overnight, Zoom was created. And it's been an incredible tool. But I can tell you, I've had countless, I don't know how many meetings by Zoom with people, but never do they match my ability to meet with somebody face to face, shake their hand, sit down for a cup of coffee or lunch, right? And have a conversation. You just cannot duplicate it virtually. Um, I'm thinking of, I had a client, and they, it was remote. I wasn't coming to their office on a daily basis, but the CEO was very visual, if you would. And how that came through was he had to write things out on a whiteboard as he thought about them, right? So that's kind of how he brainstormed. He would write it out, and he would kind of draw, arrows, and he'd kind of, you could just watch him kind of think as he was writing. Well, I learned very quickly that they had their team internally that were able to watch the whiteboard and then, feed off of him and add thoughts to it. And I'm sitting on Zoom, and even though they were pointing the camera to the whiteboard, I had no ability to do that because, excuse me, I really couldn't see it. And so I'm trying to listen while he's doing this and stuff, and it just does not work. So with your remote teams, I love what you had to say about how you create the agendas and the things, and you send it ahead of time, and you give them the things to think about and what they need to bring to the call, so to speak. Are there any tools, any technology, things that you have found that allows you to collaborate much more seamlessly with your remote teams?
We've used Miraboard in the past, so it's like a virtual whiteboarding type of like brainstorming tool. So that's definitely worked well for us in the past, especially being in marketing. To your point, like we're just all pretty visual, including myself. So instead of me coming up to an actual whiteboard and mapping it all out, we have Miraboard where we could all collaborate and where we could all kind of hop in and share ideas, and you have the post-its and things like that. So we like to do that for, any major like retro session. So coming out of a specific campaign, or, say we just hosted an event and we want to kind of ideate, what we could have done better, what was successful, what we could improve on, and just kind of visually put all of our thoughts together. We use that, and it's a great tool. Another kind of retro board tool that we use as well is I think it's called retro.io or something like that. We're really big on just being an agency and being in consulting. We always kind of think in this type of mentality, even with our own marketing strategy and our own marketing campaigns and things that we're running. After everything is completed, we always kind of like to run retro sessions, and instead of pulling up once again, a whiteboard or something like that, or even a Google Doc, having it all kind of in one place visually, with actual boards where you can have everybody dedicate, 5 minutes per board, and put together their thoughts and then all kind of come together collectively and talk about everything is very helpful for us. So that's another tool that we've used. And then if we ever do any type of just like collaborative, more so just team building type of activities, not specifically at this company, but during the COVID times, we've used a lot of like virtual type of tools as well, virtual cooking classes, virtual cocktail, classes, just trying to get everybody involved, since we can't be together in person and do like those team building type of activities. At least we can come together. It's not quite the same, but we can come together and do like some fun kind of non-work related activities virtually. So that's, another kind of tool that we've used in the past as
I
well.
love that idea. I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic, to get some more relational things going,
Hmm.
to keep that aspect of the company together, because it's so important. People need to like
Yeah.
each other. People need to
Yeah.
laugh together, and so on and
Hmm.
so forth. Um, do you use anything, um, any note takers or anything like Firefly or Otter that keeps track of your meetings while you're doing these? And then how do you use those?
The marketing team specifically does not. Zoom has the new kind of AI transcriber feature, which has been pretty helpful for us. I know that our actual client facing teams, when they're on these meetings, I know that they do use tools like that, but that's more so for, client facing type of conversations during like our discovery sessions or discovery meetings, things like that, kickoffs. I know that they use these tools, but internally, no, not so much. But definitely not opposed to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I want to go back to the schedule that you guys have. You said you're 3 days on, 2 days off. So 3 days in the office, 2 days away from the office. Is it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday you're on, and then Thursday, Friday you get off? So you have like a 4 day weekend, or?
Yeah, so we're in the office Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So Wednesday and Friday we work remotely. Yep. So and that's kind of nice because then you have your Monday. In my opinion, and I feel like people kind of go back and forth on this. I have a good friend that has a fully remote position, and she always says, I can't believe you have to go in on a Monday. Like that, I can't imagine like Sunday, like putting your kids to bed knowing that you have to wake up and like go to work. So like I get that, but I need that like Monday boost. And like that's just like the way that I start the week off is like I'm a people person. I feed off of everyone's energy. Like I need to have that human connection. So Monday is like the best way for me to have that. We have like our large kind of revenue meeting every single Monday, in person. And it's just like a really good way to like set the tone, set the week. We kind of map everything out that everyone's going to be working on for the remainder of the week. So it's really nice. And then Tuesday, of course, also we're all in the office. And then it's nice to just kind of like in the middle of the week, have that kind of break, especially for those that have children like myself. I have 2 kids. It's nice to kind of have that balance where I don't have to like rush to, drop my kid off at daycare. I don't have to rush to pick them up in the middle of the week. So that's kind of nice. And then Thursday, we're back in the office and we have, complimentary lunch, and we all kind of sit together and hang out as much as possible, time permitting. um, and then Friday, we're, at home. So it's a good balance, I think.
How much? This is going to be a controversial question.
Fine, I'm ready for it.
Just in setting it up.
Yeah.
Your friend,
Yeah.
how much work ethic plays into that response, do you think?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that I personally would not be able to work fully remotely. I think that it all kind of depends on personality. You have to be like very self motivating and very like organized in order to get the work done being fully remotely. I just know myself and I'm very honest when it comes to this. Like, it is very hard for me to just like sit down and like fully motivate myself to do things. Like, I need people and I need people to like push me and I need to like push people, and I need to have that like interaction in person in order like to kind of drive me. Now, like I said, it's nice to have that balance and I still get it done, of course. But me personally, it's really hard for me to do that. But I think some people are capable of literally just waking up and having their list of things that they need to kind of get done. It's all very organized, and they get it done. And I think it's possible, but it's hard.
I'm definitely one of those people. I work from home. I'm very self driven. I know the things that I need to do, and they're going to
Hmm.
get done.
Yeah.
Um, doesn't mean they always get done. I mean, everybody, whether you're in the office or out of the office,
Right. Of course.
can procrastinate on something.
Yeah.
But I don't have any problems with getting up and going, to my office and working every day.
Yeah.
However,
The temptation is there, isn't it?
well, it's always there, no doubt about it. I would argue that it's probably always there, whether you're in office or out of office. It's
Hmm.
just kind of how you decide to waste your time,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe. But I would also I also do think though that what you said is more the norm than the anomaly. Meaning, I think most people need some, well, some, not that you need anybody to stand over you, but you need um that collaboration, you need that drive, you need the person that's going to go, okay, let's go. um not that you're lazy. I would say, from what I kind of just see, and maybe it's because I have some teenagers and I know how much different school is now from when I went to school. And I watch, how much different work is now from when I was that age and working. There is a very, very sharp difference in the level of work ethic that the next generation seems to have than what I feel like my generation had. And that's why I was saying this is probably going to be a little bit controversial, but I think work ethic lacks. And if it does lack, then what are you going to do about it? I think you have to bring everybody in the office because people do need that accountability. You do need that accountability that I'm going to stand over you and I'm going to make sure that you accomplish the task that I'm paying you, by the way, to do, right? What's your thoughts? And feel free to be the devil's advocate and say, no, you're just an old fuddy duddy.
I agree with you. I'm also, and I say this all the time to everybody, I'm very old school when it comes to this topic. And I definitely see the generations and how different it is, right? So like, I remember being fresh out of college and having my first couple of jobs, obviously in person. A remote thing wasn't even a thing back then. And I just, I remember going into the office and just having, along with the rest of my team too, by the way, it wasn't just me, having this mentality of like, I have to work really, really hard, like super old school, like can't leave before your boss leaves. You need to show up. Working later sometimes like will get you further. I'm not saying that's the right mentality to have. It's just kind of like what was ingrained, and what I grew up with that type of mentality. So I think that's probably one extreme, and it could definitely cause burnouts. And you could definitely feel a lot of pressure, especially when you're really young, especially when you don't have a ton of experience and you're still kind of figuring things out. Being in that type of high pressure setting, can be a lot, on your mentality. However, that's one side, right? But then there's also the other side where like I see, these kids that are like straight out of college and having this kind of entitled, mindset where, they're, and sometimes even being too honest, like, you know, telling their boss like, hey, I have to leave earlier because I have an appointment or whatever. Like, that's fine. But if you're like saying in the middle of the day, like, I have a workout class, I have to go, like, why are you telling me that? you know so like, and that's just like so shocking to me to even like experience that. Like, I haven't experienced that with my team, but I definitely know people that have, like being a little too honest. And it's that kind of generational thing where, they're straight out of college and they almost haven't been exposed to like the real world. They're still kind of like in their bubble, and you have social media and you have TikTok, and it's like it's so much and it's like so overstimulating, and then all of a
Well,
sudden they're like,
okay, so if you thought the last statement, the thing that I said was controversial, you'll really think this one is. I believe that so much of that is
mm-hmm.
because kids grow up not being told no.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And they get whatever they want. And
Yeah.
so, they go into the job,
Yeah.
and they very much have this mentality of, I should be able to do whatever I want. I've been
Right.
able to do whatever I want my whole life.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so it's my generation and this older generation that has taken this stance of buddies with your kids instead of helping them to develop the work ethic, to develop that you're not entitled to anything, by the way. You need to work for it. And so what you were saying there, I think you were spot on, is that there's a pendulum shift, if you would. You go too hardcore over to the right, where it's all about drive, drive, drive. I've got to get ahead. I've got to be here past the time that my boss is here. I need to, overachieve. There's got to be a balance between that drive and swinging all the way back over to the other side, which is nothing but apathy of, well, if I feel like it, if I feel like working today, I'll work today. And if I get some inspiration here or there, maybe, something good will happen. It can't be either. We can't be so rigid that you can't take a day off, even if you don't feel good physically. And we can't be so lenient and so, I'll use this word, coddling of people that, oh, well, whatever's best for you, as long as your mental stamina, your mentality of how you feel is in a good place, will get better work. I don't think that happens.
This is kind of a funny story. I think you'll appreciate. I heard a story of how, this wasn't at our company, but how someone straight out of college was interviewing for a position and they brought their mom with to the
Oh my
interview
goodness.
because, and I think it just, and they came with, like, I think it just kind of comes down to like, also, to your point, it's like if you're handling everything and if you're just kind of taking care of everything for your child, they're never going to learn things on their own, so like that I think that's also a big problem with just seeing, this younger generation stepping into the workforce and kind of being plopped into it straight out of college without having that like experience. And this is why I always give the advice to newly graduated students or students that are still at school to like find yourself a mentor, like a real human being that you strive to be one day, that you find successful from your perspective, that, you know, preferably someone in your field of interest, someone in your industry that you know want to explore more. Find a mentor and like hang out with them and have coffee with them, meet with them regularly in person. Ask them to take you to networking events, ask them to like put you in these type of environments so you know how to act, you know, because like I've interviewed people, you know, with that are in their pajamas, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
that is not allowed.
It's, I,
That's not okay.
oh,
And whoever told you that's okay is not okay. Like it's just not.
no.
So and that like yes, things have definitely gotten more relaxed, you know, but you can't just completely like lose yourself. Like you have to still have that kind of professional mindset. And I think it is because, to your point, like no one's telling these people no, and they're not being put into real life situations. They kind of feel like they're still in their college bubble. Yeah.
It's absolutely the truth. And I mean, I love what you just said. If you're a young person graduating and you're listening to this, by all
Yeah.
means, take that advice. Go find somebody.
Yeah.
Don't find somebody on freaking TikTok.
No. LinkedIn is a great tool.
Yeah.
So, like filter out people in your area. You could do that in LinkedIn. You could, you know, first of all, create a LinkedIn page. I know a lot of young professionals
Oh,
that don't even
yeah.
have a LinkedIn.
Nope.
That's step one. Yeah, find a few people that you can meet with. Grab coffee.
I also think that our colleges are not doing
I agree.
our youth any
Yeah.
favors along this line of thought either, right?
Yeah.
My son, I've got a son that's graduating with a marketing and business degree, and he sent over, and to his credit, I mean, I was really impressed actually. He said, "Hey, Dad, I got to create a resume. I'm gonna send it over to you. Can you give me some feedback?" And I was like, "Yeah, fantastic." And he was applying for a specific position, very, very general, kind of as all kids do, really, in creating resumes, very general. And I said, "Look, my advice back to him was tailor this to the job. Look at what they're wanting. Try and fit yourself. Imagine yourself in that position, having the conversation. What do they want to see?" Colleges are not teaching any of that. They're not teaching kids real world success tasks, right? I mean, I think even in schools, they'll let kids show up online, not show up at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It used to be when I went to school, if you're late, you're not coming in.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And that teaches you something, because
Yes,
then
it does.
you take that learning and you incorporate it into the real world.
Yeah.
And now you know, like, hey, if I'm late to my job, then there will be consequences.
That's right. It's all those things that, from, excuse me again, sorry, from youth, from when you were a little kid and you're just learning not to take a cookie out of the cookie jar, all the way up to college and be on time, be alert, don't lay your head down on the desk and fall asleep while they're talking. Don't go party the night before when you know you have responsibilities the next day. All of those things have, I believe, led up to our culture, our somewhat of our work culture now. And I know that a lot of leaders are talking about, okay, well, how do we deal with the culture or the youth that are coming up, the next generation that are coming up, not only from work life balance, but what they expect, what they're demanding. And I feel like it's more of a shift of instead of, no, you're going to fit into what we say you're going to fit into because that's what's best for the organization, into how can we modify and change our organization to best fit and suit your own preferences. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Um, I think that also just kind of going back to your earlier point that, colleges don't do a great job of preparing people for the real world. I think that is, also very accurate. But I also think that it kind of goes both ways, right? So as an employer, right, that if you're hiring someone that is out of college, that there is going to be an element of mentorship along with that, right? And you do have kind of those responsibilities of guiding them. And there's going to be a little bit of hand holding. Like you can't just expect to hire this person that has, no experience to just kind of let them run. And I think that I've personally experienced that myself, coming out of college. I've had great managers and I've had poor managers. And the poor managers are the ones that are just kind of like, figure it out, while I did learn a lot just by like trying to figure it out. But like having that kind of mentor type of figure is also really important, So I think it goes both ways. It's on the employee to, attempt to learn, figure it out. And that's why, like I said, finding that mentor and gaining that kind of real life experience is really important prior to you, working for an employer. But then it's also on the employer to do a little bit of mentorship and guidance, for your employee. So I think that it kind of goes both ways.
I agree. Well, this has
We can
been
go
a
on and
little
on.
bit, it's been a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I think a really good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause I think it's an important topic that's pertinent today.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are getting used to, both being on site and then work from home or, the virtual office.
Mm-hmm.
But moving that from a conversation into logistics, into culture, I think is really important.
Yeah.
And why do we do those things? And I think you did an excellent job on that. So, Inga, you give me hope for our culture's future.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on The Marketer today. It was really awesome to have you. And thanks for all your knowledge that you shared with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
You betcha. Until next time, we'll see you next on The Marketer next time.